Playas, how you doing? Welcome back to Playas Guide. Today, I'm going to be covering the current status of the NES. So many of you already subscribed to the channel are familiar with this setup here, the current series that I'm doing where I take a deep dive and look at the market for specific consoles and collecting for it, the current status in late 2021, and sort of the past history of what it's gone through and why we are seeing some different ups and downs for various games or markets in general. Now, the NES is my favorite console. It's what got me into video game collecting, and it is my passion. I've been collecting for the NES for a long time, and I've seen, some ups and downs, but mostly ups. And, for a while there, it looked like it plateaued, but I've seen a few games that are just still going up and up and up. So we're going to take a look at those games, some of the more expensive games, some of the games that maybe have gone down, and some of the games, some of the like unlicensed stuff, because the big titles, the main rare ones, and you're gonna see them right here on price charting, which is what we use for indexing here. Nintendo World Championship, Stadium Events, Little Samson, Test cartridges, Cheetah Man 2, Flintstone Surprise at Dinosaur Peak. They're always going to be up there. Those are always going to be expensive and collectible cartridges. Do I think they'll go up in value? Yeah, I do. I think that they will continue to at least hold the value they're at, if not go up. I don't see those games losing any value, at least not for a very long time. So if you have those games, then, maybe hold on to them unless you're looking, for some quick cash, because they'll be hard to reacquire, that's for sure. I know myself, when I started collecting NES, I was buying the games out of value bins from rental stores, and I remember buying sealed games, just tearing them open, not thinking anything of it. I think I've mentioned that before in another video, because there was just such an abundance, and I wish I had a little bit more of a conservative mindset, but hindsight is always 2020, and I really wasn't collecting aggressively either. It was just like, $10 every other weekend kind of thing I would throw at NES games. Maybe $20 and I'd walk out with a stack of games. So, it was a slow progression for collecting for me, and then the momentum kind of just started building and building. And then I started finding out more and more people getting into it, because for a while there in the early 2000s, right up until about 2009, I never really knew anyone who was like interested in collecting old games. Everybody was playing, newer games or whatever the last gen might have been, like Xbox or PS1 or something along those lines. But there wasn't too many collectors out there at that time. And so we can kind of take a look here at price charting at 2008. So it's not going to go back to 2005 or 2000, when these games that I'm talking about were, $2 or $3 in a value bin. And the average price then, as far back as price charting goes, is roughly $7. So I always bought my games from value bins, and then I started around 2008. I was going to the flea market, because the video stores, the mom and pa ones had kind of gone away. It was a lot of the bigger video stores. Blockbuster was still around, but they had already liquidated out all their NES stuff, all their Super Nintendo stuff, and the same could be said for a lot of other video stores. So it was a lot of trade-in at local game stores, and some of the video stores also, would buy and sell movies and games, so they would still take in the older stuff, but it didn't really have a lot of value to them. I remember they had like I think it was like one of the Mega Mans 2 or 3 in a display case. It might have been the first one for $20 back around this time, and that was like, I guess, what they thought was like a really rare game or valuable game. This is definitely a must-own game for collectors, but we could take a look at that too. It'd be interesting to see where the Mega Man games have gone over the years. So as you can see, NES has gone nothing but up and up and up. And around here, 2009, I started seeing some of the prices going up. And it wasn't like huge. But I was going to the flea market more often, not the video stores, going to game stores more often to get the games. And because it wasn't something that people were trying to get rid of or they already had, there was a little bit less going around. Now was a ton compared to now, right? But at that time when it was just like people were giving the games away, or couldn't even give them away, people were throwing some of these NES games out. That's when I started looking online for games around 2009, 2010, 2011, and I kind of stopped buying NES stuff then because, as you can see, the games started going up. 2011 is when I really started noticing things kind of starting to increase, and you can see it here. That's when I was like, okay, I kind of had the foresight here in 2009 to try to wrap things up and get those few games that I just couldn't find by 2011. And then I guess a lot of other people were sort of doing the same thing, and then it just exploded. You had to go to a game store. Maybe a flea market might have something. Yard sales were getting a lot tougher. Actually, yard sales were, for me, a waste of time. If I was looking for NES or Super NES, I never found that stuff. It was all like PS2, Guitar Hero bullshit. Like, there was always a Guitar Hero guitar at a yard sale in 2013 here. But as you can see, game prices in general have already more than doubled by that time, and they just kept going up and up and up and up and up. And then around 2017, this is what I was talking about, the plateau. I kind of thought it was maybe more 2018, because 2017, the market seems still pretty hot, in my opinion. But this sort of says otherwise. I guess there's a bit of I guess it kind of kept curving up there, up and down. But then it started curving down more, and then kind of stayed there for a while, right? And then till 2020. April 2020, the pandemic hit. And I guess people had money to blow with their stimulus checks in the United States. And we didn't really get anything like that in Canada. But people were at home looking, doing online shopping, seeing what they could add to their collection, and that's really what it was. And then it created like this kind of hysteria that we saw all throughout here, where it was like, buy it now or pay more later. Which I sort of bought into at the end because I saw it happening and I was like, well, if these games keep going up, they're still within my budget now. Here, they're not. Here, they're definitely not. Now where they're at, I would be... Well, I did buy a power pack, but I would be buying a power pack. By the way, if you use promo code Playas Guide, you can save 10% off power pack on Retro USB. Or a Mister or something. I probably wouldn't be getting into collecting right now. And this is why a lot of newer collectors are really all about trying to push the value, trying to resell stuff, because they're really trying to just mitigate and recoup the cost of their collection somehow. Because it's tough. It's a really tough market to get into unless you're just loaded, right? Because now the average NES game, as of 2021 here, is about $40. That's the average price of an NES game. Now there's plenty of great games cheaper than that. Maybe I could do an episode talking about some of those. I know that's something other YouTubers have done, but I mean, I think I could come up with a few suggestions. Let me know if that's something you guys would like to see. Looking at NES prototypes, here's one right now at auction. It's at $800. So, I mean, that will probably go up. This was relisted. I think it sold for over $4,000, which I thought was pretty high. But looking at some of the other listings, people have the graded ones. What's the point of grading a prototype? It's really to say that, hey, this is a legitimate prototype because it doesn't have a grade, right? A lot of these just have stickers or sometimes marker writing what game it is. But what you're looking for here is like this photo here, the big board. The big board that's going to be a prototype for a game. It's got Nintendo on it, and a company like VGA or WATA will verify that. So you'll see some of those listed. They seem to be around $5,000 or $6,000. But the general prototypes by it now, as I'm seeing, around $2,000, as well as this guy I think had some other auctions, and that's up a lot because prototypes before, like, they really are the rarest games, but they don't appeal to everybody, and they've always kind of flown under the radar. You might be able to say the same for test cartridges. Everybody's known that they're rare, but they are really, really rare. Like, how often do you see a test cartridge? Even at conventions and swaps, you really might see one or two, and that's at the guy's booth who seems to have, like, everything, right? Whereas like a little Samson or a Flintstones, you'll see more of those, even though they're considered rare. You might even see a stadium events. And I'm also going to address the unlicensed games because my opinion is it looks like they're starting to get a little bit more attention now, because with the unlicensed stuff for the NES, it also sort of flies under the radar because most people focus, like collectors are focused on the licensed collection. And I'm going to be talking about the North American licensed collection here. I know sometimes there's comments about different PAL games and how rare they are, and that I should include them. For NES, I am aware of the PAL games and some of the Famicom stuff and what's going on there. But for a lot of these other consoles, I'm not in tune with what's going on in other parts of the world outside of North America, because I look at these prices. If I'm looking online, I'm looking at North American games. I'm in North America. I'm looking at game stores and swaps that, their prices, and that's kind of where I'm drawing this market analysis from. So Hot Slots Bubble Bath Babes have not, based on price charting, have not gone up a ton. They have gone up, but for a long time, let's just take a look at Bubble Bath Babes. Bubble Bath Babes is probably the most common of the three Penesian games, in my opinion, or at least it's the one that comes up for sale most often. Oh, by the way, I'm looking at loose carts here because everything going on with the sealed, and graded CIB games is maybe not 100% accurate right now. And most people, I think, collect and can relate to the loose cart prices because loose cart prices can establish a price for a CIB or a sealed or graded game. A sealed and graded game can't really establish the price for a loose cart. It most likely won't. Otherwise, we'd all be millionaires with our, Super Mario Brothers 3, and there maybe wasn't any sales. There was maybe the one here. I guess there would have been two. $500. I didn't see this happen. I mean, I wasn't looking too closely, but if I saw a Bubble Bath Babes for $500, I would snag that, because I would definitely say it's worth around $1,000. And that's where it's kind of bounces around here, around $1,000. Somebody sniped one for under $500 there, apparently. Can we see that sale? I don't see that sale listed here. I would like to look at it. Like, was it missing its label, or like what was the condition of that game? Because that is something to consider, especially with these really high-end rare games. This one has gone up, but this was kind of the price that I was seeing a lot of before, around like $800. $700 I thought was even kind of low. And then to see these $400 and $500 Bubble Bath Babes 2014, it just seems really low, but maybe my memory's not right on that. What did you guys see this game selling for? I feel like $700, $800 was at least the asking price for a very long time for the Pan-Asian games. The majority of them, they kind of get grouped together as the same price. So Myriad 6-in-1 is another one that's always kind of been around that price. But let's look at the licensed rares, because you guys want to hear about those, I'm sure. Power Blade. This one, okay, we're going to take a look at Power Blade, because that one, it has gone up a lot. I mean, they all have gone up a lot. Panic Restaurant doesn't surprise me that it's just inching its way towards $1,000 now, looking at the price of Flintstones and Little Samson. Bonk's Adventure, another one that I'm going to take a look at, because that one I kind of thought would have gone up sooner, but for many years it wasn't, you know, as expensive as it is now. Same with Zombie Nation. Zombie Nation is one that Zombie Nation's one I picked up in a value bin for $3. There's a few deals here. Actually, Panic Restaurant was one that I had never heard of before, and I saw it at the flea market for $15. And I was like, well, I don't know this game, and it's $15. It must be pretty rare. There's that and Pac-Mania. Pac-Mania was a game that I really wanted to own because it looked like a lot of fun. And I went back the next week to get those two games, because at the time they were both marked 15, and I asked him if he'd take 20. He told me he'd take 25. So I didn't get them. I couldn't haggle him any lower because I only had $20 on me. It's so funny to talk about now. You guys are probably all thinking I'm crazy, but you know, there was a time where, you know, Panic Restaurant was not nearing $1,000. That's for sure. But yeah, I went back and I missed out. I saw the guy in front of me buy it in front of my own eyes. In fact, I walked up to the booth and I said, "Hey, I'm here for that game that I came to see last week." And he said, "Oh, which one was that?" And I said, "Oh, Panic Restaurant and Pac-Mania." And he's like, "Okay, yeah, I'll get those for you. I'm just helping this guy." And the guy was like, "Oh, Panic Restaurant. I'll take that." Mother... Damn. Yeah, so that sucked. I'm looking at this game, and this is when I was collecting. $40 was kind of steep for it then, right? And then now, then it went up. Wow, look at that. Okay, there's like, somebody hyped it up to $100 or something, and then it just never really went, like it went down, but it kept getting momentum. This is a rare game, but it's just so funny to see where these games have gone. And okay, here, 2016, boom, it like doubled in price and just shot up. And this one's really got a lot of peaks and valleys here. And then now it's April. Man, we're really gonna see when COVID hit. The people were just like, I got some money from the government. I'm gonna buy Dragon Warrior or Dragon Fighter. Maybe they're thinking Dragon Warrior too. But whatever games they had their eye on that they just couldn't afford before, it was like stimulus check. Boom. Dragon Warrior is up to $570 now. It was fun to see though. So this game I got many years ago, but I think it was like even then when I found it. So it says 10 there, but I think I had looked on eBay and it was like between $20 and $30, and I was like, damn, that was a good snag. And then I remember being on Nintendo Age and hearing about somebody paid, I think it was like this price, like 170, like over $100 for Zombie Nation. And people were like, dude, you're crazy. Why would you pay that? And then it just kept going up here. And I was like, what is going on? And then somehow it kind of came back down. I guess it just really got hyped up for a bit there, and then it came back down, but it's never gone down. And this stimulus thing, COVID, has really, it did the same thing to this game as a lot of games. You know, now might be a good time to sell some of this stuff, because this, if you look at where the game is at, so let's say it could be a $300 game. that's acceptable. Even 350 where it's at. 4, let's say 4. But here, up here at 6, and then kind of staying up there now for a while. I just don't see some of these games staying that high for this long. I mean, what we might see here is something like this. And then over time, it just keeps going up and up and up. But I can't see the market just continuously increasing where it's at. And we saw with PS3 video, I'll have that one linked at the end of this, that I did last week, that a lot of those games are starting to curve back down. Now, PS3 has some different things going for it with the online sales shutting down and the pandemic and that. But NES, that's the only thing we can really do to explain that, right? Is people are at home, they've got some money, maybe they're working from home, they're not spending money commuting or eating out or whatever, and they're spending that on games, old video games. Good, that's good. See, a box was one. Look at that, somebody got a deal. Or got chewed up by the dog and they still sold it for a couple bucks. Bonks is one that before, when I was actively collecting NES here, was like under $100 for a long time, and a lot of these other games were going up, like DuckTales 2. I'm gonna see where that was at in 2013, if it was more valuable, but they were closer in value. And Bonks, I thought, was like, wow, this game is a lot harder to find than a DuckTales 2 cartridge. Why hasn't it gone up so much? Well, now it has. But look at this one. This one's got, definitely the pandemic boosted it here from $490 to $740. But it looks a little bit more of a gradual curve than just a sudden spike, right? Power Blade 2. This one has just progressively gone up over time, and then pandemic really boosted it. Now it's almost at $1,000. Craziness. Kid Clown. This is one. It is pretty rare. I don't know. I don't know if it's as rare as we think. Gunnak. Here's one. I actually picked this one up. I learned my lesson with Panic Restaurant. So what I did was the following week or like a month later or something like that, I went back in that same booth. They had Gunnak and Feria, and they had those both for like 15 or something too. This was like 2009 here, around this time. And I was like, okay, will you take 20? No, 25. All right, I'll be back next week. Put those aside, take them out of the display case, put them aside, write my name on them, and I'll be back. And I had a good rapport with all the flea market vendors, especially anyone that sold video games or comics, because that's what I was buying. So Bubble Bobble 2. This game, I remember when I was collecting, was always like an expensive one. This was a very expensive game, and a lot of people had it on their top 10 rarity lists, like up there with Bubble Bath Babes and Coltron and stuff like that. Here it is, to show what I'm talking about. 2007, $100 game. I remember seeing someone had one on Kijiji around that time for $100, thinking like, I gotta work my way up to that. But the thing here is that this one's just kind of always stuck around that price for a long time, and it never really went up or got the hype that some of these other games got. Like, we're going to look at Kid Clown, which is above that now, and Kid Clown was maybe a $40 game back in 2007. Maybe, I want to say 30. We'll see what price charting has to say. But this one's gone up over time. It looks like it kind of saw a jump here with the pandemic. I really wouldn't, that'll kind of still stay up there a little bit. It might be a $400 game now. It'll level off, but it's just weird to see something like that. And then now let's look at Kid Clown in Nightmare World. Here we go. Look at that, 2007. And I'm overvaluing it, I guess. It was a $20 game in 2007. 20 to $30. For a long time. Then it started getting some momentum here in 2012. And started going up and up and up. And then, I don't know what happened here in 2016. It just went up, but did not come back down. I guess a lot of these like hidden gem videos too, it sort of expose people to some of these games and help it build a bit of hype. It shot right up in 2021 though. Action 52. Here's another example of a game. And Snow Brothers. These are great examples of games that were always kind of pricey. Maybe they were at one time overestimated and overvalued in terms of how rare they are. So let's take a look at those, and then we're gonna take a look at Swordmaster and Cowboy Kid for games that were undervalued, but I feel like they're a little bit overvalued now because Snow Brothers is harder to find than both those games. Swordmasters I never really see. Cowboy Kid, I found that in the wild. I've seen it around in the wild before things really went crazy. So yeah, Snow Brothers is like a $50-$60 game, which in 2008, 2007, $80. That was an expensive NES game, just like Bubble Bobble 2. And it has just kind of gone up over time. But if you look where it's at, right? Let's say it was $80, which it was, but that's the higher end of 2007, I would say. And up until pandemic, when things started going up, it was about a $200 game, maybe a little bit more. Whereas, let's look at Swordmaster, game nobody ever paid attention to or heard of, but it wasn't the cheapest game, right? Because it was one of those games, you know, if it comes into a game store and you work in a game store, oh, I've never heard of this game. It's probably uncommon. Collectors did exist back then. And, you know, so they maybe slapped, hey, let's try to get $10 to $20 out of this game. And then it's gradually gone up, which is nice to see. That people did recognize over time as they go for more and more people go for their complete NES collection, that it isn't a very common game, and that it should command some value. But here, where we're at now, where it's almost $400, seems a bit much when we're looking at a game like Bubble Bobble Part 2 or Snow Brothers, which I would say are more rare. This one's definitely always been undervalued in terms of rarity. So let's look at that. So it was cheaper there. I don't remember it being really a cheap game. I remember it always being like $100 game. And then these prices are just kind of wacky all over the place. So I guess it had some hype for a while. This was this 2013? Was this around the time Greg Pabst, I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I know how to pronounce a beer named Pabst, so we're going to call him Pabst. Came out with that Cheetah Man 2, the Lost Levels game, or whatever it was. I didn't buy into that, as you can probably tell. But I remember there was like Game Chasers, Pat the NES Punk, and people were promoting that game. It was a cool thing, but I wasn't really that excited for it. And then it kind of settled down. So I think maybe that was around that time. Maybe that's why it kind of spiked, and then people came to their senses and was just like, you know, Action 52 is just a rare game. The cartridge looks really cool, but we're not paying a lot of money for it. And then it kind of went down here, right? Like it should have went up. And this is what happened with a lot of the unlicensed games, because a lot of them aren't very good, right? So people want games that are good, rare, and part of the licensed set. This doesn't fit that bill at all. So that's why it didn't go up too much. Till now, people are like, hey, we need some rare games. This one's undervalued. And we got pandemic money to blow. Let's buy an Action 52. It looks good. It does look good sitting with that clear cartridge and the circuit board. It does look cool sitting on a shelf. Cowboy Kid has gradually gone up, and this is to the effect, I think, of more and more people entering the collecting market, going for complete licensed libraries. And you know, this one, I haven't really been following it, but I know that people are saying like, oh, this game's so rare, Cowboy Kid, and I was like, is it really? it's rare, but it's I never thought as of if it. I never thought of it as one of the rarest. But I mean, now it's sitting pretty at $400, and it looks like this is one that might not dip too much. It might kind of sit there for a while. Cannot be right. We need to look up Cultron 6-in-1 on eBay. See how many are available right now. Because this is a $250 game. I know, so for a long time it was like a $200 game. I don't know what happened there. Some of this stuff's not right? Like there's little things that should probably be taken out, like that sale. But it could be, who knows? Who knows? It could be a legitimate sale. So it's like a $200 game for a long time. I remember this game, though, and I don't see it here. I think it was like 2012 or 13. There was like a storage locker full of them, and I remember seeing loose copies of this game going for around like $80, and sealed was I think around like $400 or something. I mean, let's see what that's at now. That's still low. That, I don't know if that's right. $400 and $250 for a loose. And so what happened was there was like a storage unit or something. Someone found a couple boxes or a skid or something of this game, and it sort of flooded the market at one time. So I'm wondering where that was. Maybe it's better reflected here. Maybe January 2012. Here we go. Probably late 2012, early 2013. And then it kind of bounced back because everybody that wanted it picked it up. Not a lot of people really wanted this game. But this is a pretty rare game. On the rarity scale, you know, this on the price scale, it's down here below Action 52, which is surprising. But on the rarity scale, it should be up here somewhere, right around Zombie Nation and Bonk's Adventure, or even above those games. Maybe closer to like Panic Restaurant. So to find Cultron 6-in-1 on eBay, I punched in NES. There's one here. There's a Myriad 6-in-1 CIB, asking $8,000. That one's been there for a while. It looks like just a bunch of other pirated games. There's one Cultron. So I'm talking about it's on the level of like Panic Restaurant rarity. I think it might even be more rare. Let's see how many Panic Restaurants are available on eBay right now. Probably more than one. Sorry, these are all in Canadian prices again. Well, you're gonna get over $1,000. Man, if I bought that $15 copy, if I had only had that, that's one of my biggest burns. So it looks like there's, just judging by the price and what's up here, there's 3 legitimate loose carts and a bunch of pirated copies, which is not cool. Menace Beach, look at this game. So it's always had a premium for years and years. They're $50 or whatever. It has gone up, but now I think, yeah, 2016, 2017. It's funny when the other games are starting to plateau. This is where I think we're going to see a lot of the unlicensed games starting to pick up a little bit of pace there, because maybe those people, the people who really wanted NES complete collections, had them and sold them. But I've noticed in game stores, swap meets, things like that, there's a lot less unlicensed NES games now, especially a lot of the Color Dream stuff. Tengen, you know, not so much. Camerica, maybe not so much. But the Color Dreams bunch games, I don't see too much of that now. I used to see tons of them. People didn't want them. Racer Mate Challenge. That's crazy, $700. Look at this, $200 game, 160, 200, 150, 230. This game went down. This one game went down in price. That is weird. And this game you don't see. Like, look at that cartridge. Such a weird looking cartridge. I love it. I love the weirdness of some of these unlicensed games. And now it's a $150 game. If you're looking for something really rare and undervalued, there's your game. You probably won't be able to play it because in order to play it, you need to get this whole setup with your bike in your living room. And the setup is really, really rare. And big, bulky, expensive to ship. And when you have it, you probably won't want to have it because it's going to take up so much space. You're not going to use it. It's just one of those things that's so rare but novel to have in your collection that is the only reason you would probably want it. Bomberman 2, always considered a very rare game. Not so much nowadays. So let's take a look at that. So it's definitely gone up. It's at $150. But back then, back in 2007, 2008, a game that was selling for $40, that's a game that was considered to be that was a rare game, a Bonk's Adventure, I think, was a $40 game around then too. Price charting says different, but I know from experience, I also know around, maybe 2010, 11, DuckTales 2 was also a $40 game. Power Blade 2 was around there. That's what I would see it for sale when I came across those games. Bomberman 2 was sort of in line with those games for a while, and then it just kind of, I guess around here it just didn't go up as much, and it's been a slow grind to not even the top for Bomberman 2. And I still really don't see this game too often. It's definitely not as rare as Power Blade 2 or Panic Restaurant. But that one, and also Mario's Time Machine, was one that I never really came across very often. Super Nintendo, all the time. NES, not so much. Here, let's look at Silent Assault. So this one says black, though, which is, they have a black and a blue cartridge for many of the Color Dreams Bunch games. And a lot of times the black cartridge is the more rare cartridge, but not always. There's always been this rumor of the black baby boomer, and I think maybe somebody posted a picture of that once online, and nobody ever sees a black baby boomer. Challenge of the Dragon. Yeah. Oh, that one was considered very rare. Color Dinosaur. Let's take a look at that. That one had some heat on it for a while. I said I wanted to look at the Mega Man games. I would agree that Mega Man 5 or 6 is probably the harder Mega Man games to score. Cool World, that's sort of an undervalued rare. Gargoyle's Quest 2, pretty hard game to come by. Same with Scoon, but both great games that people should add to their collection. Tengen Tetris, this is going to be a fun one to look at. Challenge of the Dragon. So this was one of the more rare unlicensed games. And you can see way back here, it's, well, that, I don't know if that's accurate, but $50, $60 for the game. Sort of went up for a while. It got up there, and then it just kind of came down. Nobody was really interested in it. And stayed there for a very long time. Still is kind of down there. And this is a rare game. Color Dinosaur. Nobody cared about a coloring game for many years. And then I don't know where it got this hype from, but I remember hearing about people talking about this on the forums, Color a Dinosaur is really rare. So it had some heat behind it, and it was at $50 or whatever, and it kept going up and up and up. And I was kind of thinking getting behind the concept that, hey, I really don't see this game very often. Maybe it is one of the rarest, and people just overlooked it because it's such a basic kids edutainment type game. And so this is where I think the hype died off, and it never really gained it back, because I think it is a rare game, but people weren't really interested in it. But now it's getting recognized again because people got money. Tengen Tetris, how about this? People thought this was one of the rarest games, and it is rare, but I seen it from time to time. I had a couple copies of this game at one time, and then I started selling them off because I think it was maybe a $60 game, and I was like, well, this isn't, I don't think this is going anywhere. How do I have a few copies of this? So yeah, it's sort of gradually gone up, but like look at this. Not really. I mean, it's just kind of bouncing around the $50-$60 mark. Uh, it, it, yeah, it was like a $30-$40 game, so it did go up. I don't know, maybe $70. It seemed $70 still seems like kind of not enough considering how rare people thought it was. And it wasn't as rare as people thought it was, but it still was definitely rare. And then, boom. What the hell? What the hell, people? Games. Castle of Deceit, though. This should be worth more, I think, given its rarity. Not going to be a game that you're going to have a ton of fun playing, but, you know what? It was, like, here you can see, it always demanded a premium of, like, a $50 game, and it's never really fallen below that. But it hasn't really gone up, and that's just because it's not a fun licensed game. Like, it's an unlicensed game that, you know, it's not great. So it never really went up much in value. And even here, when maybe it's not quite as rare as I thought, but I've always thought of this as one of the more rare games. And 5 is one of the harder to find Mega Man games. And yeah, it was like a $20-$25 game for many years. And then it's, you know, like I was saying about in that store, there's a Mega Man game for $20 or whatever. And $20 was like an expensive game at one time. And it's gone up and up because some people just collect Mega Man because the Mega Man games are great. Reached like $100 here in 2016. And that looked like it was going to be like the pinnacle for this game in terms of collecting because it cooled off like most of the NES market did. But then I guess the people who didn't have it that wanted it bought it when the pandemic hit. Here we are from March. Boom. And just what happened here? Back at the beginning of this year, people really wanted this game, but now looks like it's going to go back down. We're going to see that dip for a lot of games. Probably more of the popular games we're going to see it with now. So here we go. Let's just take a look at Mega Man. This is the last one for today. Okay, so typical of Mega Man games where they're around $20. That was kind of standard because Mega Man sold. People wanted Mega Man games. Didn't really consider them rare, uncommon, or anything. People still wanted Mega Man games in 2016, 2017. Again, looked like the pinnacle was going to be like $80 here. And it's Mega Man, so why not? Why not pay $80? That's the price of a new game, right? And then it cooled off. So a lot of these popular games are going to reflect the NES market, you know, the way it has kind of gone over the years, right? Because when it was up here, it was like $80 for Mega Man game. People are, you know, it's getting expensive, especially if you're going for a complete set and you're looking at some of these popular games and $80, right? So then now it's back up to $80 again, just because of the pandemic. But I think it'll cool off. We'll see it come down a bit. It might not go back down to 50 or something, but $60. Not too bad. You know, it's Mega Man, but that's what we're going to see. Thanks so much for sticking with me throughout this longer episode of Playas Guide. At the end of the year, I'm going to do an overall, like all the video games out there, the different consoles, what we saw over the past year happen to collecting for them. And obviously, you know, we've seen what the pandemic did last year. And I'm going to kind of do a year in review for collecting, as well as another video for my predictions of what's going to happen in 2022 and what consoles and outliers will kind of stand out within the market and community for video game collectors. So please consider subscribing to the channel, following Playas Guide on Instagram and Twitter. We also have a Discord if you want to talk more about NES collecting, or you can leave a comment below about maybe a certain game that you wish I talked about that I didn't address it there. Also, you can find Playas Guide on Twitch with daily retro gaming content. That's it for this episode of Playas Guide, and I'll catch you on the flip side.